As an immediate step, Canada must declare the IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, as a terrorist organization, just like the US has done. However, we know that the Trudeau government won't take action. What a great tragedy unfolded in Iran over the past week. Has the regime no regard for human life? Apparently not. How do we tolerate such a barbaric act in the 21st century? Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old woman, died at the hands of the morality police for simply allowing her hair to show under her hijab, which apparently violated the country's strict Islamic code. Isn't the term morality police an oxymoron? The morality police in Iran have license to enforce compliance while they are completely immoral themselves with rape, plunder, and blood on their hands. Protests over Amini's death have spread across cities, towns, and villages in Iran and internationally. According to Amnesty International, at least 21 people, including 3 children, have been killed by security forces over these protests. At least 41 people have now been killed in total, according to a death toll given by Iran state television on Sunday, though official numbers have not yet been released. Iranian women are burning their hijabs in protest all over the country. Hardline Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi appeared at the UN General Assembly session in New York with nary a condemnation about the murderous incident. CNN journalist Christiane Amanpour requested an interview with Raisi while he was in New York, but he demanded that she wear a headscarf. She refused, saying she lives in a free country. Rightly so. Was Amanpour's hair going to put Raisi into an ecstatic frenzy? What if he had seen my purple hair? The interview did not happen. When we connect the dots, we will see that what is happening in Iran and some other Muslim countries are signs of Islamism or political Islam, which I've been explaining to you over time. Case in point, the Al-Quds Day Parade, the Salman Rushdie attack, and enforcement of hijab. Those escaping the harshness of Islamist regimes have found that Islamism is cropping up in the West. According to Focus on Western Islamism, a newsletter published by Daniel Pipes, there's a lot of Islamist activity in the United States. On the Labor Day weekend, there was a convention held by one of North America's largest Muslim organizations. At this convention, some speakers presented progressive visions, while others painted an Islamist future for the United States. One activist who spoke at the convention called convicted Hamas terror supporters the finest men. This organization, that bills itself as a promoter of harmonious interfaith and interracial relations in the United States, is in fact a prominent source of anti-Hindu propaganda in America. Focus on Western Islamism reports that the convention featured speakers who have promoted anti-Hindu rhetoric and aggressive anti-Indian propaganda was on full display at its annual meeting in Chicago earlier this month. One speaker called for the release of convicted terror supporters and for the establishment of a caliphate. In March, a group of 50 people, mostly members of South Florida's Jewish and Hindu communities, gathered to protest outside the first annual conference organized by a Florida Muslim group. The organization had invited Khalid Griggs, whose anti-Semitic proclivities are well known, to speak at the event. According to a report in the Washington Times, Griggs has acknowledged ties to groups that advocate for U.S. Muslims to separate from mainstream society to form a sovereign Muslim American community governed by Sharia or Islamic law and ethics. Meanwhile, right here in Canada, Islamists have struck again. Alberta Justice Minister Tyler Shandro fired the chief of the province's Human Rights Commission, who had refused to step down on charges of Islamophobia. What exactly was his Islamophobic act? Colin May, the first openly gay chief of the commission, wrote a book review in 2009. A book review. Imagine how terrible that is. The book in question is Ephraim Karsh's Islamic Imperialism, a History, which states that Islam is inherently combative. Well, today Islamists are combative. A Canadian Muslim organization known to have ties with their main group in USA, who are unindicted co-conspirators in the terror finance trial against the Holy Land Foundation and its former officials, published a letter signed by 28 Muslim organizations and mosques calling for May's dismissal. While May says he did nothing wrong, and I agree, Justice Minister Shandro caved into the pressure from the Muslim groups and fired him. Cancel culture strikes again. Frustrated by this move to fire May, a journalist from the Western Standard, Linda Slobodian, called me to ask if I, as a Muslim, think that the review was Islamophobic. I said absolutely not, because it was a book review, and May says he has no angst with Muslims. However, we know that Islamists operate on a victim ideology and will refuse to engage in dialogue. My point in bringing up these examples is to say that Islamism is alive and well in the West. Islamism does not always present itself in violent acts. It's an ideology that works in numbers. It works to quell free speech, it works to stem debate and discussion, and most importantly, it works to intimidate ordinary non-Muslims from speaking out. Confronting Islamism in the West is not a luxury, it's a given, and can't be done by one person or a single community. Protecting our citizens from the ideology of religious authoritarianism, like we have just witnessed in Iran, and Islamism requires a coalition of people willing to stand firm in the face of Islamist hostility and intimidation. It requires leaders taking a stand, getting out of their political correctness, and listening to activists from other communities. As an immediate step, Canada must declare the IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, as a terrorist organization, just like the US has done. However, we know that the Trudeau government won't take action. This is Rahil Raza for Rebel News. Don't forget to click or like www.rebelnews.com.